Atkinson with the corner. Oh! A fantastic header! Gordon Armstrong! It's back in his grasp. Chelsea are dumbstruck.
We're 1 hour down into the 24-hour Twitter Spaces, and our next guest has come on board already. Now, obviously, we've already introduced him, but let me just give a very quick backstory of him. He is a 7th all-time appearance maker for Sunderland with 418 appearances. He has won promotion for the lads from both Division 3 and 2. And he was in the FA Cup final in '92, and he scored, well, he's definitely up there, one of the most iconic Sunderland goals in that FA Cup run. Twice voted Player of the Year. It's Gordon Armstrong. Gordon, how are you doing?
Good evening. Good evening. All good, thank you. Yeah, good. And you?
Very well, Gordon. I'm very well. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on board with us today. So before I get into your playing days,
yep.
Let's see, what are you up to these days at the moment? Because I had a little look on your LinkedIn profile.
Yep.
You head up GA Sports Management and are a fully licensed FA intermediary. Is that basically you're an agent?
That's right. Yeah, basically, yeah, football agent. Yeah, it's a fancy name for it now. They changed it a while back, where you had to become licensed with the FA. So yeah, that's what I do. That's what I've done from the time that I jacked in playing football. That's what I did. So yeah, still enjoy it. It's a lot harder work than it used to be, I think, because there's a lot more agents and stuff. But yeah, I enjoy it. It keeps me involved in the game, and it keeps me out of a little bit of trouble anyway.
So, did you never sort of fancy going down like the management route at all? How did you sort of fall into that side of it?
Yeah, it was something. When at the end of my career, sort of thing, I had a brother who's a lot younger than me, and he asked me to do it, to look after him first and foremost, and that was sort of in the last year and a half of like playing with Burnley. The manager there was really good with us, and he said, look, whenever I needed to go over there, even if it was in time when it was, we were training and stuff, I could go over and sort contracts out for him, things like that. So I sort of started then a little bit, and then when I actually finished playing football with Burnley about a year later, I managed to get sort of likes of Robbie Blake and Richard Chaplow and people like that on board who were Burnley players. So that got me started, and I was living in Manchester, obviously at the time, or near Manchester. So that's really how I got started and kicked on from there, really.
That's fair enough, mate. But let's talk about your career, and yep. It's been a roller coaster, to be fair. So despite you were born in Newcastle, yep. Despite that you are red and white through and through.
Yeah.
So how as a young lad growing up in on the dark side, how was that for you?
No, not great. No, I mean I had a little period when I moved to Carlisle. My dad moved jobs for about 3-4 years, so I moved over to Carlisle for a bit. But overall, he obviously being brought up in Newcastle, it wasn't easy being a Sunderland fan, I must admit now. I always tell everybody I didn't have a name, basically. I was just Macamere to most people. I had a few mates that were sort of Sunderland fans, one of them being Martin McFadden. So he was in my class. When I left originally from primary school to go over to Carlisle, I was about 6, I think. Martin was in my class. And when I came back to middle school, which is what they do a lot of the times in Newcastle, he was in that class as well. So that was good. So I had one Sunderland fan. There was another lad called Keith Atkinson, who was another lad at Gosford High School. We were about the only 3 Sunderland supporters that I knew anyway. So we sort of fought the world a little bit, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it wasn't easy. There was some daft things went on at times, especially when I was playing later on. But that's just part of growing up, I suppose.
Well, so we'll get to one of those very important games in a short while, no doubt.
Yep.
But you say you actually signed for lads at just 15 years old. How did that come about? Was it just Sunderland interested in you, or could you have gone to other clubs at the time?
No, but I had a few other clubs that I've been to, sort of thing, and like Tottenham were really strong and want me to sign, sort of thing. I've been to Tottenham for about a year and a half before, well, not a year and a half, but within all that, so I'd been to Tottenham for about a year and a half before I'd signed for Sunderland, and then I was at Sunderland for maybe 6 months before they sort of took me on schoolboy forms, and that really, to be fair, although I love Spurs, don't get me wrong, and it was amazing because I've got to watch the likes of Glenn Hoddle, and I stayed with Mickey Hazard, to be fair, and in digs and stuff. Still speak to Mickey once in a while now through Twitter and things like that. But yeah, so it was but there was only really one choice. Obviously as a kid, the team you support, that's where I wanted to be, and I could stay at home, obviously. Yeah. So that was it was a no-brainer really for me. Even though, to be fair, Spurs offered me like a guaranteed sort of a pro contract sort of thing, apprentice and then pro sort of thing. But Sunderland didn't. They just offered me schoolboy forms, but yeah, it was a no-brainer, and luckily enough, it worked out for me. And obviously, love my time at Sunderland.
Do you ever look back though, when and obviously we're delighted you actually made the choice you made, but do you ever look back now and wonder, that sort of sliding doors moment, what would have happened in your career had you gone to Spurs?
No, not really. It worked out brilliant for us. At the end of the day, it's sometimes I always say that you need a lot of luck as a young footballer, to be fair, and it so happened that when I was 17, the first team were struggling badly, had a lot of injuries, and it was near the end of the season, and I was doing well in the reserves and got a chance, basically, more because I think one or two of the lads at the time were sort of picked up injuries and got a little bit naffed off for what was going on behind the scenes and things, and so yeah, it was again some interesting bits and bobs within and all that with my first games, and some lads didn't even really want to play, to be honest, when we got near the end of the season, and the club had to threaten basically that they'd cancel the end of season holiday for some players to play. So that's sort of how
wow. So you've come in at probably one of the worst possible times then.
Yeah, at that time, yeah. But I always said that was Sunderland Football Club, and it always has been. And
it doesn't seem like it's changed a lot.
No, it's all. But that's why I say it's either up or it's down, and it's never boring. I think with all the seasons I was with Sunderland, and I think this, I was there from sort of 16, 17, obviously till I think I was 28, and there was only one season where we were finished mid-table, so we were either, at the bottom or fighting at the top of the league, and that's how Sunderland's always been, to be honest. It's obviously we've had some periods where in the Premier League where we've been more in the middle, but I wasn't around then, and the times I've been there, it's always been fighting for promotion or relegation, so it's never been boring anyway, put it that way. That's what I always say.
Oh, it's never been. I've been following Sunderland for over 30 years, and I say, some seasons I just wish for mid-table obscurity just once. It would be nice.
Yeah, Ali. Yeah, once in a while it would be nice, but yeah, I mean, certainly not this season anyway. We want to be top end, don't we? But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, sometimes it would be nice just to have a boring season and hang around in the top league or something like that would be nice. Yeah.
So just before your actual debut, this, as you touched upon there, a few weeks before that was actually the Milk Cup final versus Norwich. Yep. So were you sort of, because you was in the reserve, were you around sort of the first team enough then? Did you sort of travel with the team to Wembley that day?
I didn't, to be fair, but my first ever trip was actually the semi-final.
Against Chelsea?
Yeah, against Chelsea, yeah, down there. And we sort of played Luton on the Saturday and then stayed down for the game on the Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday anyway, I'm pretty sure, of the Milk Cup semi-final as it was then. So I think we got beat at Luton or drew or something like that, yeah. And then obviously the big game that everybody was concentrating on really was the game against Chelsea. And then I just remember, again, just pure madness at the time, but we tried to get to the ground and obviously left in plenty of time, but it was absolutely madness around the ground and everything. The team actually only got there half an hour before the game, so we sort of the skips were rushed in with all the kit in. The lads didn't even have a chance to even walk on the pitch or anything. They just got changed and basically ran out onto the pitch. So, I mean, it was just pandemonium and the worst atmosphere I've ever encountered up until then and since. It was just horrendous. Anybody that was there, I think, would tell you the same. It was just kicking off everywhere. I was on the bench. I think Paul Lemon was like similar age to me, was on the bench with us, and there was people behind us like sniffing glue and things like that, and kicking the back of the dugouts and going mental, to be fair. And as you went down, there was a tunnel then, and it was all open as you went in. And as we were going down, the lads were getting spat at and chucked the cups of tea at and coined. And it was just mental. I remember Steve Cram telling us afterwards that he had to leave because before like half time, because he was just getting so much abuse. But I always remember like I think it was Clive Walker was running down the wing, and there was this big, massive metal spike that came out from the whatever they call their stupid end, whatever it was, the cowshed end or whatever the hell it was called. Can't remember now, the old end. But it came out of there, and it only landed about 3 or 4 yards from Clive. And obviously, I think most people have seen the pictures where the horse runs on as Westy scores. I think the third goal. I think.
Yeah.
It was just a mental night, and it was a big introduction to like football at that time, to be honest. And so it was a mad night.
I know the stories from that day, from a supporter's point of view, are still sort of notorious to this day. But you're a 17-year-old kid at the time.
Yeah.
You must have been quite glad not to have come on in the end.
Yeah, no, I wasn't sub. I was just in the squad. But like, my brother went down. My brother was only 14, and he went down. And sort of wish he hadn't, because it was just horrendous. That obviously the old one was they used to ask you the time or whatever, and I think somebody had asked him, and then they'd gone for him, and he just ran. Well, luckily enough, you're 14, you're pretty quick, aren't you? And you think, he got away, no bother. But yeah, it was
lucky. Lucky for him that night. So moving on then from there. So a few weeks after the cup final, you make your debut.
Yeah.
24th of April, 1985. It was a 1-0 defeat, unfortunately, to West Brom, and it was actually the day we got relegated as well. So that must have been a real sort of bittersweet day for yourself.
Yeah, it certainly was. Yeah, it was. I played centre half, which I hadn't really played before. Like I say, we had quite a lot of injuries. I think memory serves. I think it was either Sean Elliott or Gordon Chisholm wasn't fit, and they ended up playing sort of left-sided centre back. It was more likely probably be Sean. I would think. It wasn't fit, but I loved it. At the end of the day, it was obviously in the top league. And we should have won. We battered them, to be fair. We were the better team. I remember standing at the bar, and we were far the better side, but we couldn't get a result, and it was so it's just enjoyable. And obviously the season was really done anyway, because there was still 4 or 5 games left, I think.
Yeah.
So we were virtually guaranteed to go down anyway. But yeah, I got a few more games after that, and that was.
So when did you find out? Because obviously Len Ashurst was your manager at the time. When did you actually find out that you were going to be playing on the Saturday?
It wasn't a Saturday. It was like a Tuesday, a midweek game.
Oh no, it was a Wednesday. Apologies. Yeah, it was Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday night game.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I think sadly Frank Burrows passed away, but he was coach then, and he was brilliant with, well, not just me but everybody. He was really a great human being, and he pulled me and told me, and he taught me through it and everything. And he was a class guy, just a class individual, who took a real care and give loads of people loads of his time to try and make people better. And he did that with me every day, and he was the one that told me, to be fair. And yeah, he was a tough guy, Frank, but and I remember him pulling me after the game, and he said to me, Armstrong, in his Scottish accent, he said, "You didn't do bad, but you didn't do good." He said, "So I've seen better and I've seen worse debuts, so you did all right, kid." Yeah.
Oh, so you'll take that, I suppose, won't you?
Yeah, exactly. First game, I would have loved to have won, but we didn't. But like I say, we probably should have done.
So for yourself, then, when we've obviously we've been relegated, and so we're now in the old Division 2.
Yeah.
Was there a part of you that kind of felt that, obviously, as a boyhood fan, you don't want and you want, as a professional, you want to play in the top league, but at that stage of your career, did you feel that actually it might actually not be a bad thing? You'll get more opportunities to sort of get into the first team.
Yeah, that exactly it. Like, again, the same thing. You need a bit of luck, and that's what I think. It actually didn't turn out like that. I basically didn't get back in the team for quite a while, to be fair, for another sort of 6 months, I think it was. Obviously, new manager came in and everything changed, to be honest. We were spending money left, right and centre, and most of it on him, to be fair. But yeah, it took us a while to get back. It was Christmas time, I think, before I got back in the team. But that's what you hope for. And I just remember being absolutely good, because once you've tasted that first team experience, obviously you want more of it, especially when you're a young kid. I was only 17, 18-year-old, so I just wanted to be back playing, and eventually I got back in there, yeah.
And as you say, 'cause you only made 14 appearances that sort of second season under McMenemy, but you did actually get your first goal for the club in a 1-1 draw with Crystal Palace at Roker Park. How did that feel?
Yeah, that was amazing, yeah. It was a ball in by Paul Atkinson from the left. He whipped it in, and I came in and actually slid in with my right foot, and it ended up going in the bottom corner sort of thing. I remember Barry Venison didn't play for whatever reason. I think he might have had a bit of a fallout, I think, with Laurie, and there was some bits and bobs going on. But he said to me, because at that time in the Roker end paddock, they're basically down, not in the Roker end, but actually in the paddock itself, there was all the caging was up because of the stuff that had gone on in football. So he said to me, I thought you were going to jump over the top of that when you scored. Yeah. So yeah, but it was special obviously to score, and that's obviously a boyhood dream that you'd love to score, and especially at Roker, that was amazing. Yeah, and that was the end. To be fair, as a kid, I always stood at the Roker end, and when the Roker end was massive, before it got chopped down, I stood right at the back of the Roker end with my mum and dad and my brother, sort of thing. So to score at that end was special, like, yeah.
I bet it was, because I can pretty much guarantee about at least 99% of people listening right now, you've literally just said what their sort of boyhood dream is. To score for Sunderland, to score at home.
Yeah,
that is it. The pinnacle of any boyhood's sort of dream is it, to score for your hometown team.
And that was it for me. Yeah, to be fair, that was it totally, and honestly, that was everything I wanted. The only other one that I always say that I missed out on. The other one I wanted to do was score at Newcastle, and score at like the Leazes End, a winner at the Leazes End, which I never did. I hit the post at Newcastle once, and that would have been nice. And it was from it was wind assisted. It was about 100-mile-an-hour winds. I hit the post from about 45 yards or something, But yeah, I did score against them, but again, that didn't count because that was at home, and we got beat, to be fair, 2-1 when Liam O'Brien scored with a shot that I won't say what he is, but never mind. Yeah.
No, but as I say, don't worry. There's a good Newcastle story to come. I know that for a fact. So the following season, so that's sort of 86, 87. This is when you sort of literally start becoming a bit of a mainstay in the team. You made 43 appearances.
Yeah.
At that stage. Now, unfortunately, we were relegated into Division 3 for the first time, in our history at the time. So it wasn't, the best of starts. But those 2 years saw you play under 2 managers whose probably reputations could not be more sort of chalk and cheese. So, on one side you had Bob Stokoe, absolute legend for the club. Obviously, there's a statue now outside the Stadium of Light. And then Laurie McMenemy, who probably the only person close to our hatred of Sunderland managers is probably David Moyes. So what were your thoughts on those two then as managers?
Yeah, I always say, like, Laurie was a decent enough guy. He was, I always said if he'd had a better assistant for me, and I had nothing against Luke Charlie, was a decent enough guy, but I just thought if he'd had somebody else in as his assistant, he might have got away with it a little bit more, but Lou was too like Laurie, really, and it never worked. Laurie was he's no expert on football, put it that way, but he was good at all the other sides, and obviously attracted players that, he'd done before in whatever way. And I think he basically he obviously did try to do the same at getting in experienced players that had done really well in the past and to build the team. But quite a few of them, to be honest, couldn't handle playing at Roker Park. They're all been, good players, but once it starts to go wrong at Sunderland, I always say Sunderland is the best place on earth to play if you're playing well. But if you're playing badly and the team's playing badly, it's a hard place to play football. So like the David Swindlers, people like that. There was, plenty of others, Steve Etsky, a lot of goalkeepers at the time that we had. We struggled with goalkeepers who couldn't find a good goalkeeper. We struggled that year and went down, yeah. So that was probably the most gutted I've ever been, to be honest, because like you say, I'd played a lot of games, and I wasn't really involved in the team that went down from League One as it was then division. But to have a full season and to be relegated was fairly brutal, to be honest. And I didn't enjoy my whole summer. I just wanted to get started again. And lucky enough, Dennis came in and things turned around for the better.
Well, that's exactly it. So, Dennis Smith comes in 87, 88, and again, you played 41 times at the club, and we go up as champions.
Yeah.
Yourself, Gabardini, Gates. You helped supply them to the goals that season. You alongside Gary Hours.
Yeah.
That must have been a great time then to sort of be at the club.
Yeah, it was. And also, I left out there Bob Stokoe, and I would say that he was at the end of that season where he came in to be a little stopgap, a caretaker manager. He was brilliant, to be honest. He was spot on with everybody. I always tell the story a little bit of, he was a brilliant guy, Bob, and an absolute gent, to be honest. And he was great with all of us. And he did give us a little lift, and he nearly did enough to get to keep us up, sort of thing. It didn't quite happen, but I always tell a little story of sort of myself and Gary Bennett. He used to mix our names up, so probably obviously that Gary Armstrong's not too bad, but Gordon Bennett. And so they used to say that all the time, and one of his other ones and whatnot when he didn't know anybody's name. But he was a class human being, and I enjoyed playing for Bob, to be fair. God rest his soul, sort of thing. But a class man, like, yeah. But yeah, moving on from that, Dennis Smith was, a total, total breath of fresh air, sort of thing. He was spot on. He was the best manager I've ever played under. Certainly the time, he was exactly what we needed. Just go on, sorry.
I was saying, was there anything in particular that he did sort of straight away to turn things around and then sort of implement his own ideas?
No, he just, like I always say, football was a lot simpler then. It wasn't really so much tactics and things like that. He just basically believed in us all, and he sort of talked to everybody and instilled confidence in them, basically, in players. And that, a lot of people had struggled, and like Eric Gates hadn't had a great time up until then. But then to, obviously, him and Gabbers just hit it off straight away, and they were yin to yang, basically perfect for each other. Like Gatesy could hold it up, fantastic footballer, see a pass, a great finisher as well, obviously. But he's a good footballer, and then Gabbers had all the other things that Gatesy didn't have. He was raw, he was quick, he was aggressive, and he scored all types of goals, Gabbers. So, but they were great together. And obviously we've got some young players coming in who did great as well, and it was the start of a good spell for the club. And obviously really enjoyed the promotion year. It was fantastic, and to go up as champions, I think in the end we deserved it. Yeah.
Do you see when you mentioned there about obviously having some like young lads coming through as well? Do you see many sort of comparisons with the team now, obviously in the same league, and where we are sort of this season as opposed to previous seasons, buying older players and on almost final paychecks? This season we've seemed to have gone down that young player route as well. Can you see any sort of similarities between sort of like Lee Johnson's team and your team back then?
Yeah, I can. I think. Listen, I think this year we've gone about things the right way. At the end of the day, we've gone out and got young players, and that's the only way forward for me. You've got to invest in young players. We want more out of our academy. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of players from the last mob, selling them all off. But there's still some good players come out of the academy, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more. So yeah, I do see some similarities. If I'm being honest, I don't think they're as good a side as us.
No, I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah, that's the truth. But I do see that they've tried to do things the right way this year. And as a Sunderland fan, you can only ask for your players to give 110%. And I think all them lads out there have done. I've watched I've probably been to 7 or 8 games this season, and I've enjoyed most of the games I've been at, especially earlier on. I thought they played really well earlier on. They were full of confidence. Maybe playing on better surface early on the season, I don't know, but they played some really good, really attacking, open football that I thought was a joy to watch at times. It's died off, no doubt about it, in the last few weeks. They haven't played as well. I wasn't at the game on Saturday, but I was the game before that. So against Oxford, where they drew 1 each, sort of thing, and then that was a game of 2 halves, obviously. But I am enjoying watching them a lot more. It does seem that is a big change in the whole attitude of the club, and hopefully along the way it continues, sort of thing.
No, definitely, and I agree 100% with what you've just said there. But going back to your own career though, so you're now you're only 2021, and you've actually pretty much already knocked up 100 games for the club, which is unbelievable, really. Like when you look at it now, and I was chatting the other day about it with someone, and if you compare that to someone using today's players like Nathan Broadhead, he's 23 and he's only actually played 28 games in his whole career so far. So for yourself, do you think that that's a mad stat anyway? Obviously we are talking different eras, and what's the culture of the club there, sort of? Because nowadays it's all sort of sports science and that sort of thing, and I don't think the sort of players burning out so much. For yourself, were you sort of just thrown into it? But then there's also that kind of work hard, play hard attitude as well. What you expect from sort of 90s football?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I was thrown into it, no doubt about it. And squads weren't as big then, you know what I mean? So it was totally different. But I do say, there's a little bit of luck. Even someone like George Honeyman, who came in and did quite well for us. George wouldn't have had a chance if we'd been in the Premier League. And the same with me. If I got a little bit of a chance in what was the old First Division, I suppose. So you could say that's not totally true, but I'd probably be something like a Gooch, something like that. I did the same. I played 1 or 2 games in there, but it's not an easy one. Yeah, I think that I'm just pleased that I had the opportunities that I did. Things have changed a lot. It's not all of them for the better, I don't think, and I don't think under 23s football sometimes really helps these kids. They need to go out at an earlier age and play football. For me, in man's football, I wouldn't have a young kid playing in under 23s football over sort of the age of 19. For me, I just think it's counterproductive, to be honest, because it's not real football, and it's certainly not League One football. So, as a 19, 20-year-old, if you played, 30, 40 games in the under-23s, it's not going to help you when you go out there and someone goes right through you in a League One game. It just doesn't happen in 23 games, and everything's sort of nice, pretty, on the floor. And that's not what's League One and League Two, or, that's why, for me, they've got to go out earlier.
Well, you've also got, as well, with the old reserve teams, when you're in your time, there would be proper professionals playing in there, wouldn't there? So you wouldn't just be, it's not just the kids. You could, you're playing reserve game, you could be coming up actually against some proper quality internationals at some point, trying to get fitness back, get back in the team or something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I played at Man United where, the likes of Mark Hughes and Clayton Blackmore and people like that played, So, absolutely 100%. You learn quickly that, you can't mess about these people. They won't just sit and wait for you. They'll get stuck in and treat you just like anybody else. So, you either sink or you swim. And, they don't talk to you like the way they get talked to, obviously, in the 23s game for me is the truth. So, I absolutely think you should bring reserve teams back. It's something I've said before, maybe it's an old fogey, but that's how you learn. You learn off your senior professionals and people that probably come to the end of their careers that now and then need a game and they go and play there. They don't very often, the senior players, play in the 23s, because I think a lot of the time the managers think that it's a waste of time for them.
Yeah. No, but so I always keep branching off when I speak to anyone. So back to your career, because this is where it gets really exciting. So you've been promoted as champions. 89-90, and you actually break the record, speaking of sort of games played. So you played 59 games that season. If I'm right in thinking, you missed 20 minutes
Yeah, that's
of
right.
the season, which
Yeah.
is just, again, ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you hear players now sort of, after 5 games into a new season saying that they're tired and they're burning out, and then there's you literally knocking out 59 games.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, again, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. And I remember, to be fair, I know exactly what game it was. It was against Newcastle in the away from home, and sort of that was a massive game for me. So I was like so wound up for that game that I actually got cramp in the game. And Dennis Smith slaughtered me, to be fair, just funnily, to be honest. For weeks on end, he sort of kept telling me I was unfit. So he wound me up and... But yeah, it's nice to hold that record. I must admit, I'm really proud of that one. To think of all the Sunderland players that have been, and I've played more games than anybody, even a goalkeeper or anything like that. To hold the record for that makes me immensely proud.
You should be. I don't think it'll ever be broken either.
No, not the way football is now. I don't think it will, to be honest. But you never know with anything, do you? Things can change. But yeah, like I say, I'm really, really proud of that. I love Sunderland Football Club, and to hold that record is amazing. Yeah.
Oh, good man. So that season saw the playoff, the semi-final at St James's Park.
Yeah.
So, well, for yourself, anyways, as a local lad, as someone who hates Newcastle, and Newcastle fans hate you just as much from what I've read. How was the build-up to that game?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was obviously the first game was pretty much a non-event, to be honest. Other than obviously the infamous penalty that me and Hardy used to laugh about. To be fair, because he always says that I saved his life because there was about 6 Newcastle players who wanted to chin him. To be honest, so after booting Mr. Burridge, well, it wasn't going to make him any more crazy, was it? Anyway, so yeah, Budgie's nuts, to be honest. So yeah, it was it was like I say, a bit of a non-event. But I also remember coming in after the game and sort of Alan Oliver like talking to a few of their guys in as you came into Roker Park. There was a hall before you went upstairs to sort of the director's box, the manager's bit, and everything. And they were all laughing and joking and thought they'd done it basically. And I passed that on to a few of the boys, and I think I promised a few of the boys a bottle of champagne each if we won, but I ended up buying them maybe half a dozen bottles for somewhere. But then to go there was amazing. Yeah, that was unbelievable.
So before that game started, how were you feeling? Because I suppose that you've got that in one side of you. What you want to prove, like I say, just there, what you want to prove a point, you want to get them back and show. Was the fear of defeat? Would that even cross your mind at that stage, or were you just thinking we need to win this?
No, you're just thinking positive thoughts, to be honest, and that's the way Dennis was, to be honest. I remember that was one of the only times I've ever done it in my career, to be fair. But basically, he told me to follow Aiken around and make sure that he didn't influence the game, to be honest, and that was like sort of a strange thing for me. But he wanted me. That was something tactically he wanted me to do, and to make sure that he, like I say, he didn't influence the game. He felt that he was somebody that really could influence the game. So he was getting on a little bit then, Roy Aiken. But yeah, he did well for Newcastle that season, unfortunately, and that was something. But we outplayed them after the first 15 minutes, to be honest, and we had more of a threat, obviously, with Gatesy and Crabbers. Warren Hawke came in and did well, and it was a brilliant night. Owsey did great that night, so it was just a brilliant night, and obviously them running on and trying to do what they did made it even sweeter for me, to be honest, because that just showed how sick they were. So
it did. As a Sunderland fan, seeing them trying to get the game abandoned. Obviously, the ref was having absolutely none of it. That game was getting. I think even said if it was going to play till midnight, that game's getting finished. That full-time whistle, that must have been one of the sweetest. I suppose that point into your career at the time, the sweetest so far.
Yeah, that without doubt was it, and it still remains the sweetest. Even people talk about other games and bits and bobs to me sometimes, but that's the sweetest game for me. And they wouldn't, because of what happened in the game, they wouldn't let the lads go back out on the pitch to celebrate with the Sunderland fans. But I managed to sneak out there, totally by myself, and celebrate with Sunderland fans. So that was special as well. Yeah, that was.
Brilliant. And what happened on the way back then into Sunderland? Was that a late one that night?
Yes, that was a late one. We ended up in Finos. Yes, we just drove straight. The bus went straight to Finos, and we all jumped in there. So we had a great night. Yeah, Mr. Dillon tells me he came in, to be fair, with Mickey Hartford. And Mickey Hartford was a little bit angry with me because he thought I was taking the Mickey out of Kevin Dillon, but I would never fight with Mr. Hartford. I love him too much, but there you go.
I don't think anyone would fight Mr. Hartford.
No, we would, no, exactly.
On to Wembley, though. Now, I was actually there, 8 years old that day, and unfortunately we did lose 1-0. Tony Norman had an absolute stormer, though. It could have been a lot worse. What happened that day, though? But it just sort of went wrong, didn't it?
Yeah, totally. I think it was sort of went wrong, to be honest. We went away to Menorca, to be fair, for a holiday, and that was a bad idea, full stop. Being the time that it was, that's all you did was sort of have a few drinks, and, it wasn't really frowned upon then, and we probably got a bit carried away. And to be fair, one other little story from Newcastle game, the end of Newcastle game, Kevin Dillon, who was sort of friend of few of the lads because he was from Sunderland anyway, and sort of told us that Gordon McKeegan had said whoever won the Newcastle game was basically promoted anyway. Now, that is no excuse for the way we played at Wembley. We played terrible. Nothing at all, just a little story alongside all of that. But he already said that Swindon were in big trouble and they couldn't get promoted, sort of thing. So, but they played a different system, I think, to be fair, on the day, Swindon. They played with three at the back. We'd already played them off the park twice that season. So we were really confident, and to be honest, they just totally outplayed us, battered us in every department, really. So it was a real sickener until obviously we got the news that it was all reversed and changed around in the summer. I was away in Ibiza, and then, as you did, on the no mobile phones, we rang home on the payphone and got told that it had all been changed. So that was a nice day.
That must have been a great phone call to that one. So you're finally, we're back in the first division, top flight. Your first time. How did it feel as the season went on? Did you feel like that you were comfortable, in that league around those sort of teams?
Yeah, I think we did. Listen, we had loads of great games, and anybody that watched that season would have enjoyed most of the season. We had a great game at Liverpool where we got beat 2-1. We drew with Spurs 3 each when we should have won. We were 3-1 up with 10 minutes to go or something, 15 minutes to go. We had loads of great games. Arsenal, we didn't get hammered off them at any stage. We played all the top teams and never really got battered off anybody, but we just probably lacked a bit of experience. Probably more so at the back, maybe. And we just couldn't do enough to stay in the league, unfortunately. But maybe Mr. Murray should have put his hand in his pocket a bit more, but that's how it was. And unfortunately, we went down, and it was still memorable because I was talking to somebody at the weekend, and we were talking about the Man City game, and that was just bloody amazing, to be fair.
Well, I say that again, that's one of the famous games in Sunderland's history, although, again, defeat and relegation, but was there something like 13,000 or 15,000 Sunderland fans turned up at Main Road that day? And although you were relegated, you didn't go down. It wasn't a case that you were a bad side, was it? Was it just one of those seasons where if a couple of gold got in here, was a point turned into 3 there, you'd have been okay.
Yeah, definitely. I still think that, and I think loads of other fans do. We weren't a million miles away, that's for certain. And it was just really disappointing to go down. And although we battled all the way and took it right to the last game, unfortunately it wasn't to be. I was telling Gary Bennett, it was his 60th of the weekend. We talked about it, and I remember after the game, to be fair, it was probably one thing that people forget as well. It started where Niall Quinn sort of fell in love with the club, because I remember coming back into after the game, afterwards we were all changed and suits on and all that malarkey, and I was coming back in down the tunnel, and he pulled us and he just said, really, really hope you guys come straight back up. It's just amazing that support today, and you don't deserve to go down, and make sure you get back up next season. So that was like a class act, and that's how Niall was, I think. Yeah. So
no, well, he always comes across that way, doesn't he? And as you say, what was that the moment? Where I think was it saying that the Sunderland got under his skin? It could have even started slightly that day.
I think massively, yeah. I mean, because it was just amazing, to be honest, at Main Road. I still think there was more than even some people say 15,000 or whatever. I think it could have been even more than that. It was just, the ground was just full of Sunderland, it was just full of Sunderland fans, and it was amazingly emotional. I hadn't played, actually, because I was suspended for the last game of the season. I got sent off when I get sent off somewhere. Oh, Southampton, I think, yeah. I couldn't play. But it was a hell of a game, and it was just obviously sickening to go down.
So after that season of relegation, it probably come the next season is where you and your teammates sort of cemented themselves into Sunderland AFC's history. So it's the famous cup final in '92. They've run itself though, so we'll sort of start. I'll skip the first sort of few rounds. So it's we beat Port Vale at Oxford. We set up 2 games then against West Ham at Upton Park, having led 2-0 by John Byrne getting both the goals. It was pegged back by Martin Allen, and David Rush pops up and smashes it in from 6 yards. Was it at that time already? So are you starting think, because we're not famous we're famous for cup wins, but not so much cup runs. Were you starting to think that something could happen this year?
Yeah, it was just a feeling. Obviously, Bernie was scoring for fun in the cup, and when you've got somebody that can score goals like he could, and he was a great footballer, you always had a chance. Obviously, we had Don in the group as well, to be fair, as part of the squad, but he couldn't play. So, Dav was coming in and doing a great job and scoring goals as well. As Dav was a great footballer, Peter Davenport.
Yeah.
So you just never know in football. You know what I mean? You just basically take it game by game, and it was fantastic. The run was fantastic, I always say, but obviously the final was crap. I've never watched the final since, because I didn't play well. We played all right in bits, but in the end we were well beat by, I always say, Jan Mulby was the difference between the two teams. He was just on a different planet that day, and it just suited him down to the ground. The pitch, it was slow, and he just passed it for fun, and he was fantastic on the day, yeah.
Well, before the cup final, though, there was a small matter of a game against Chelsea, where we drew at Stamford Bridge. John Byrne scored with 10 minutes to go to take a replay back to it looks a very windy ROKER Park. Yeah. Before the game started, what are your thoughts, before that game? So the quarterfinals of the cup against first division opposition, what's going through your mind? Yeah,
I just basically, I always thought like this, if you could fill ROKER Park, and especially on a night game, it was just always special. Full stop. You know what I mean? Didn't matter. We, obviously played in a load of games like that, but to have a full house, it was just an amazing atmosphere. Full stop. And we always knew we had a chance, because we had lads that put their head, foot in, do anything basically to try and get a result. And I think you could go through that team, and basically it was full of honest lads who give everything. Borley, Benno. David Rush, Brian Atkinson, maybe not the front two, Dav and Bernie, but they were. Anton Rogan, people like that. Tony Norman was superb in the run. He was just unbelievable. A great shot stopper. You know what I mean?
I watched the highlights back the other day. And so you actually scored. You opened the scoring, but it was offside.
It wasn't, by the way.
I wasn't afforded such the luxury of 15 camera angles and VAR and so forth. I was going to ask you, was that actually a goal?
Yeah, it should have been a goal. I came in from behind, and the ball came across, and I came in and made a run, and I was like a yard onside. I know it was to this day, but it was disallowed for offside. So
I think that's definitely your sliding doors moment, though, because if that does go in, this next part doesn't happen. So Peter Davenport opened to scoring after 20 minutes. And to be fair, it was a really sort of like back and forth game. As you say, Tony Norman was great in goal. We did actually score another one, but again, it was ruled offside. And then Dennis Wise pulls it back with 5 minutes to go to 1-1.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about what happens next. So Brian Atkinson steps up to take a corner. And what happens after that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we had worked on it, and like if I see Crozzer now or speak to him, he still laughs about the fact we used to try that, to be fair, in training, and we worked on it quite a bit. And we hadn't been doing sort of outswingers, and I told Aki to go and take an outswinger. So he put in a perfect ball, which he would do because he's a fantastic footballer, the lad. And, I would say Aki should have probably even played higher because he was that good. He played alongside Brace, who was obviously as well an experienced and top player and was unbelievable that day as well. But it was a great ball in. And then, I heard Mr. Jones on about it on some podcast or something, saying that he told Townsend to mark me. I'm not sure about that one, but he told me that's what he said anyway. But I beat Mr. Townsend quite easily in the air because I wasn't bad in the air, and it flew in the bottom corner. So that was rather nice. Yes,
it was an absolute storming header. I think you pretty much started your jump from outside the box. It was absolutely fantastic. Do you ever get tired of talking about that moment? Because I say that's you're at that point in time. That is you, and then obviously you played over 7th in the league, 7th in the all-time assists. But that moment is an iconic moment in Sunderland's FA Cup history. No matter what happens, you will always be remembered for that. And does that?
Oh, it's lovely to be remembered for something, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like I scored something like close to 70 odd goals or something. But I always say as well, to be fair, I think there must have been about 200,000 people in ROKER Park, to be honest, because there's a lot of people talk to me about it. But. But like I say, it's just lovely to be remembered something. Hey, listen, I don't pretend that I was Sunderland's greatest ever footballer because I wasn't, right? But that like I say, all the bits and bobs that I've done does make me very proud. I love my team. I wish we were doing a bit better. We've had some ups and downs the last few years, but once you're a Sunderland fan, you always will be. And I just hope the boys can turn it around this year and make sure they get in that top two.
Well, what I was going to say, I was going to move on slightly and just a way to say you've mentioned the cup final there, which was unfortunately ended in defeat. But let's say you can still say that you've actually played in an FA Cup final for your boyhood team, which again not many people can say. So surely you can take that away, from that, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was different then, wasn't it? You know what I mean? The cup final was a real big thing. It was starting to get a little bit less important, but it was still big. And I think it was still massive for our fans. And that was shown by, when we came back, the reception we got. It was just unbelievable. And that really summed up Sunderland fans to me, that, the reception we got, even though we got beat, was just unbelievable. I reckon there was sort of 250,000 people on the streets when we came back on that Sunday. I think it was a Sunday, yeah. And that was just unreal. Coming back in from near, on the sort of Herrington roundabout and stuff, and then back in through there, it was just unbelievable. And I'll never forget that ever.
So the fans appreciated that the work that team put in. It was a phenomenal cup run, and it's just a shame that it ended how it did. But no, it was brilliant. But then, sort of moving onwards, as I appreciate we are sort of running short of time. You did get your testimonial though for the club, which in today's game is rare for for players to beat a club for so long. You played Bobby Robson's Porto, winning 2-0, but and that again must have been special for yourself at ROKER Park. For your big occasion.
Yeah, it was amazing. We'd been away to Norway, I think, on pre-season, and I came back a little bit early to help with sort of preparations and stuff. And Bobby Robson kindly brought over Porto. So yeah, it was great. I think it was about 11,000 there, so that was fantastic for a pre-season game. And yeah, I appreciate everybody coming out, and we beat them. To be fair, we beat them 2-0. I was sort of injured, so I couldn't really play anywhere. I tweaked my knee or something somewhere along the line. It might have been in Norway, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think Mr. Mourinho was a coach as well. To be fair, on the I'm pretty sure he was. So yeah, it was all good, and we had a good couple of do's and stuff around it as well. So yeah, it was really enjoyable, and again, just a proud moment to say that he played for Sunderland, the team that I love, for sort of 10, 11 years, and that was mint. Yeah, class.
I will open it up to any of our listeners if they want to ask Gordon a question. We've got a few moments left with him. But Gordon, while I've so if you do want to get involved, just request, and Gav's there to bring somebody in. So you did sort of end your career then with Sunderland before heading on to Bury. Now, were you sort of sad how it ended for yourself at Sunderland, because you sort of a bit injury sort of played, I believe, the last sort of couple of seasons?
Yeah, it was. What I didn't realise was me back was knackered, basically, and I only found out a year later when I was at Bury. Basically, I had to have a back operation, and I didn't know that at the time. I was picking up injuries, but were more related really to me back. I had to have a couple of me discs out and things in me back, so my back was completely shattered. That kept me out for quite a long time, all over the summer, But yeah, it's football. It happens, you know what I mean? Listen, I could have moved a couple of times. Never really wanted to leave Sunderland ever. So yeah, it was. It wasn't great the way it ended, but that's football and that's life. You move on, and I really enjoyed my time at Bury. I had 2 great years. I was lucky. We got promoted and stayed in the Championship, which was unreal for Bury. It's just really sad how the club's gone there, and I just can't believe sometimes what the EFL does with things. But yeah, that was enjoyable. And then my manager at the time, Stanton, then took me to Burnley not long after that, and I had 5 great years there as well. To be fair, got promoted again. We stayed in the Championship, and we missed out on the playoffs 2 years running. I think one on goal difference and one by 1 point. So. There were good times, and we had the likes of Ian Wright and Gaza came in on loan for about 6 months, and so did Righty. So I had some great times there as well. So I was really, every club I was at, I got promoted. I think in total I got promoted 5 times. So I've been a lucky lad. I've done something that I've enjoyed, and we weren't massively well paid then. We weren't like millionaires or anything, but I wouldn't change it for anything. And just fantastic times.
No, you shouldn't. You should be very proud of your career, Gordon. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I do have one person who wants to come in and ask a question. Tom Albrighton.
Right.
So I'll pass over to Tom to ask a question.
No problem.
Good evening, Gordon. Obviously, I've listened in here, and you've partially touched on it a couple of times. So I was just wondering, because you have been a vocal critic of the previous ownership regime of Sunderland. So I was just wondering, essentially, what your current thoughts are on the new ownership under Kirill Louis-Dreyfus, and sort of surrounding the continual presence of Methven and others, as it seems to have emerged in the meetings from the minutes from the recent meeting there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm obviously no fan of the last lot that were there. I've no time for them at all, to be honest. I think they only came for one thing, and that was to make money. They weren't here very long, and they tried to sell the club. There's varying reports on that. I have a pretty good idea. It was only a few months, to be honest. So that pretty much sums up what they were and what they were about. Hey, listen, they put some money in at times, and but there was a lot of money in the club, as we all know. We had the parachute payments, and most of that's probably gone missing, I think. And I've no time for them, and probably the least we talk about them, probably the better, because I get a bit upset, really. Especially for me, the biggest nightmare and absolute disgrace of it all was what they did to the academy. The young players that were allowed to go and were encouraged to go, from what I've been told from different sources and from parents in the academy. That is the lowest of the low for me. But, I get like Man United, Liverpool signed some of our players and stuff like that. But you should never encourage players to leave your football club, and that's what they did. That's what they openly did. I know that for a fact. So, that was the worst of the worst for me. And as for Kirill, I think Kirill, without doubt, is a good man. He wants to do the right things, and I just hope that he's given chance to be able to do that. There's a big worry, obviously, at the minute is how much of the shareholding he's got. I honestly don't know. I hear different bits and bobs, and hopefully some of them are not true, to be honest. But I think that the guy's got his heart absolutely in the right place. The things that he's doing around the club are for the betterment of the club. So, all the things that he's done, he's tried to progress the academy again. He's spending money and everything. Even little things around the ground and stuff that he's done have been better. But at the moment, it doesn't seem like he's got, he already wants to spend loads and loads of money. Now, that could be a number of reasons. I'm not certain. Whether it's something to do with the guys that were there before, I don't know. Again, you hear different bits and bobs of rumours. I'm not certain, but you just hope that this guy's given the opportunity to run it exactly how he wants to, because I think he has got there's no doubt about it, his heart's in the right place, and he's put a new setup in that can only improve the club.
Yeah. So on the subject there, you've just touched on briefly there about the spend so far under the new regime or there in lap of.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to suggest that perhaps that maybe Louis Dreyfus hasn't dipped his hand in his pocket as much as people would have liked to have seen by now, purely by the virtue of we've experimented already whilst being in League One with spending large fees on relatively big name players for the division. Yeah. So could it be a case that perhaps he's maybe not dipping his hand in his pocket because logically for the club going forward, it might be better to invest in younger, lesser known players and kind of have them grow with the club rather than spend millions and millions of pounds to ultimately and possibly end up in the same division?
Yeah, I listen. I get the strategy. I think you've got to have a bit of both at the end. If you identify somebody you think's better than the player that we've already got in, or the number one player that's in the team or whatever, then you've got to go out and spend the money. That's how you progress, and hopefully, I think he wants to make it self-sustainable. So he wants to run it whereby we're not making big losses. So he can't afford to spend millions of pounds on players. I get that, and I get the strategy of getting young players. And like I said earlier on, I think it's the right thing to do. We just got to make sure that the quality of them players is right. It's not easy. Nobody's going to get everyone right, but the biggest thing for me is his heart's in the right place. He's come in with the right attitude, and I think all Sunderland fans can forgive a few mistakes and failures along the way if somebody's trying to do the right things, and that's what I honestly believe that's what he's trying to do. I still hope he's got over 50%. I don't know, but I hope he has for his sake. But yeah.
No, I agree with what you're saying there, Gordon. I really do. I do think he's doing his best. I think I do think his heart's in the right place for us. So it's fingers crossed he will be it's onwards and upwards. But Unfortunately, I've taken up an hour of your time already, and that's absolutely flown by.
No problem.
Thank you so much for coming on board. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your stories.
And listen, you guys are doing an amazing job. I did the soup kitchens, not in Sunderland, but nearer, closer where I live right now, in Middlesbrough a couple of years ago. And it's amazing what they do, guys. And it's a really worthy cause. And thank you to you guys for sorting that all out and pushing it and raising the types of money that you guys are doing. So I appreciate you guys doing that.
Good man. Thanks a lot for your time, Gordon.
Top man. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Gordon. Thank you.